Part 11. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 101. Chapter 101, 6 Starfighter Xiao Sunur. 161,000. Of course Xiao Yu wants to be a mentor, Xiao Yu said with a smile. Turning to look at Xian Chen, he continued, this young man is the legitimate son of the fourth elder of my Xiao family. According to the seniority of the Xiao family, I still need to call him uncle. When Xiao Yu said this, a faint blush appeared on her pretty face. Instructor Ruolin noticed the change in Xiao Yu's face, and Instructor Ruolin shook her head helplessly. He patted Xiao Yu's head lovingly. Immediately, he said softly to Xian Chen, the recruitment of Canaan College is so complicated. Since you have the strength to defeat GECI, from today on, you will be a specially recruited student of my Canaan College. The freshmen standing in the sun looked at Xian Chen with envy on their faces. After a while, Rob, who had his facial injuries treated, finally came towards the side aggressively with the support of a group of young people. One of the young men, after seeing Xian Chen, immediately clenched the sword in his hand without saying a word and was about to stab Xian Chen in the back. Ashes, stop it, Tutor Ruolin, who should have been smiling, suddenly became furious. She suddenly raised her hand and stood behind Xian Chen, and ripples of fighting energy immediately erupted from her body. The terrifying ripples shook towards the student at high speed, and then the sword-wielding student vomited blood and fell to the ground. Rob watched this scene quietly. His face was wrapped in gauze, and he was naturally very angry. Teacher Ruolin, he injured a student of Canaan Academy and almost killed GECI. As Instructor Ruolin of Canaan Academy, do you really plan to let him go like this? Although Rob's face was wrapped in gauze, you could clearly tell how gloomy his face was. Teacher Ruolin frowned slightly, breathed a sigh of relief, raised her palm, pointed at Xian Chen, and slightly opened her red lips, and then said what she said, but it was enough to surprise everyone present. Recruiting students is a new experience. Besides, didn't you also encounter this kind of problem before joining Canaan College? Now that Xian Chen can defeat you, it cannot be said that he killed you intentionally, but just to successfully enter Canaan Academy. This sentence made everyone present look shocked. When Rob heard Tutor Ruolin's words, instead of being angry, he became extremely friendly. As the gloom on his face gradually faded away, Rob put on a bright smile again, walked quickly to Xian Chen, raised his hand and put it on Xian Chen's shoulder, and said softly, "Haha, I was just talking to him." "Just kidding." "That's right, Junior Xian Chen." This sudden reversal shocked everyone. But Xian Chen smiled coldly, looked at Luo Buletin who had a stiff smile, and immediately taunted, "Although you and I haven't started fighting yet, why did you give yourself a step first?" "What? Are you really so afraid of me?" Xian Chen's words ignited Rob's angry heart. He looked angry, and the gloom on his face was enough to be compared to horror. It's just a pity that because it is wrapped in gauze, it cannot be seen by everyone around him. "Boy, don't be too arrogant. You must know that there are many students in Canaan Academy who are better than you. If you dare to continue to go to Canaan College with this kind of character, I can guarantee that you will definitely pay the price." Rob deliberately approached Xian Chen and then sneered in his ear. Xian Chen looked at the other person as if he was looking at a fool, and then slowly said to the solemn-looking Instructor Ruolin, "Are you the Instructor Ruolin that senior sister Xiao Yu talks about?" "I am Xian Chen from the Xiao family. If you don't mind, I hope you can visit my Xiao family." "Going to your Xiao family?" Suinkan's words made Teacher Ruolin feel very inappropriate. "Haha, I think it's better to verify your exact strength first, because in that case, we can better determine how to arrange academy classes for you." Teacher Ruolin said nonchalantly, then she stepped up her long white legs and sat down elegantly on the chair at the head of the tent. Second, as for the new students who passed one after another, they all entered the tent one after another. Looking at these freshmen standing neatly, Su raised his hand, and a NA ring on his finger shone brightly. Then a green parchment scroll and an ink pen appeared on the table. She raised her beautiful eyes and looked at the new students. Then she raised the ink pen in her hand and asked the new students, everyone must know the minimum standards of our Canaan College. And these standards are called potential values by Canaan College. They are F level 8th level fighting spirit, E level 9th level fighting spirit, D level 1 star fighter, C level 2 star fighter, B level 3 star, A level 4 star, and the most unlikely S level. An S class? The freshmen looked at each other. Everyone seems to be extremely interested in S class. Instructor Ruolin seemed to have noticed this, and then she covered her red lips and smiled softly, and said softly to Xianchen intentionally or unintentionally, is this S level? It's not that it hasn't happened before, it's just that however, this level is usually for recruiting tutors within Canaan College. What about the instructor's standards? A curious freshman asked hurriedly. However, as soon as the freshman finished speaking, he received warning looks from the veteran students. The new student stepped back in fear. Instructor Ruolin did not continue to answer the other party's doubts. After smiling slightly, Ruolinsu held the ink pen in her hand and said softly to everyone, okay, let's start, starting from the first one on the left. When registration began, those quiet female students started to make a fuss. One of the good-looking female students hugged Xiaoyu's waist and teased with a wicked smile. Tell me, what level will your Xianchen be? Hearing this, Xiaoyu frowned slightly and thought for a moment, although she knew Xianchen's strength. But if I say it rashly at this time, I'm afraid it would be inappropriate. The female students also looked curious, but they couldn't make trouble with these guys. Xiaoyu pretended to be angry and said coquettishly, you guys are just good at making trouble. Although I know his cultivation level, but I can't explain it clearly, then let's be A level. Class A? Everyone was stunned at first, but when they reacted, they all felt that Xiaoyu was deliberately deceiving them. However, the speaker is unintentional, but the listener is extremely intentional. After hearing Xiaoyu's words, Rob, who was still holding on to luck, had an expression on his face that was as complicated as eating shit. As for the male student who was knocked away by Instructor Ruolin's palm, his face turned pale with fright. Xiao Sunur, a 6-star fighter, age 16. Ruolin, who was sitting in her seat, had just recorded the last freshman and had not had time to write it down. After hearing the words of another freshman, she was so shocked that her wrists stiffened, and her gentle and pretty face finally showed a look of shock. But those male students who were still doubting Xianchen's cultivation all looked at the young girl who reported her own strength. The girl's light voice caused a dead silence in the tent, and almost everyone's eyes were staring blankly. A smile appeared on Suankin's face, and he said softly and teasingly to the girl beside him, I didn't expect that Sister Sunur could be so terrifying. She has reached the level of a 6-star fighter at such a young age. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 102. Chapter 102, Give Up Joining Canaan College Together, 171,000. Pursing her red lips, Ruolin's eyes trembled slightly, looking at the girl who reported her age and cultivation level, unable to calm down for a long time. When Rob saw that the girl in front of him who was about to be included in his harem was actually much higher in cultivation than him, fear suddenly appeared on his face. But fortunately, his face was wrapped in gauze. Otherwise, his frightened expression would definitely remain in everyone's heart. I didn't expect that Sister Sunur's cultivation level is higher than mine. Xiaoyu raised her eyebrows without any trace. I'm afraid she just believed that Xiao Sunur could achieve such an achievement at such a young age. And the female students around them looked shocked. The shock on her cheek slowly faded away, and Instructor Ruolin stared at Sunur with brilliant eyes. After a moment, Yan Ran smiled and said, I am afraid that the most outstanding person in this recruitment is you, Sunur. Hearing the other party's words, everyone cast envious glances at Xiao Sunur, but Xiao Sunur smiled slightly and shook her head. Her sudden behavior surprised everyone. Instructor Ruolin's face was slightly confused, and Suanji said softly, "What's wrong, Sunur? Is it possible that there will be someone with higher talent than you in this recruitment?" People around were in disbelief. After all, everyone present, except these old students, these new students may not be as talented as Sunur. At this moment, Rob, who had sweaty palms, swallowed his saliva and said with an almost trembling voice, "I know who." Xiao Sunur shook his head. "If I guessed correctly, he almost hit him with one punch. He is the one who kills the assassin." Rob reached out and pointed at Xian Chen, but when he realized what he was doing, he hurriedly stopped his hand. "Rob, although Xian Chen has the strength to defeat Cige, but looking at his age, I'm afraid he will definitely not be stronger than Sunur, right?" Teacher Ruolin said softly, but when her eyes fell on Rob, she was completely with contempt. After a moment, Xian Chen glanced at Rob indifferently, then stretched out his hands and said teasingly, "Okay, I'll show my cards. Actually, I'm a fighting master." "Fighter?" The boy's hollow voice caused a dead silence in the tent, and almost everyone's eyes looked dull. Xuan's cheeks twitched slightly. She held Xiao Yu's left hand, covered her red lips with her hand, and said in surprise, "Is what Xian Chen said true? No wonder he has the strength to kill Cige with one punch. With this talent alone, I'm afraid I can directly become an elite student of Canaan College, right?" Elite students. The male students who were originally mocking Xian Chen now had deathly expressions on their faces. After all, if Xian Chen is really a fighting master, once he successfully enters the elite inner sect, these guys will definitely suffer unprecedented damage. Instructor Ruolin frowned slightly. She probably couldn't believe that Xian Chen could be a fighting master. However, just when Teacher Ruolin was about to speak, she suddenly noticed that Xian Chen's body was faintly covered with gauze made of condensed fighting energy. Fighting energy turns into yarn. He is really a fighting master. How is this possible? No way. He is actually a fighting master. Tisk, 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 it's actually a fighting master. It seems that this time Instructor Ruolin is going to show off in front of the entire Canaan College instructors. Upon hearing this, Instructor Ruolin had an inadvertent smile on her face. He narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at Xian Chen carefully, and then said aloud, "I didn't expect you to have such an achievement at such a young age. I just don't know who your father or mentor is. Don't get me wrong. If you have a master, you must obtain the other party's consent. Otherwise, if something happens, we at Canaan College cannot be held responsible casually." Teacher Ruolin spoke meaningfully. It was obvious that she really hoped that Xian Chen could join Canaan College. But Xian Chen frowned slightly. He did have a father, but for someone like Master, it can't be said that the system gave him everything, right? After a slight silence, Xian Chen said awkwardly, "Forget it, respect the Master, but he has always been used to idle clouds and wild cranes. He is the one who sees the dragon but never the tail. He has always been the only one to see me, not me to see him." Xian Chen's words made everyone open their mouths in shock, and Rob immediately made up his mind. After Tutor Ruolin and others left, he hurriedly apologized. Teacher Ruolin stared at Xian Chen with a half smile, and said softly, "Okay, since you said so, I won't embarrass you, but your talent is too high. If you enter Canaan College, you must ensure that you become Ruolin's student, otherwise, no matter how talented you are, I will definitely make you regret it." Ruolin's voice full of resentment clearly came from the experience of having encountered students who had been robbed several times. Xian Chen raised his palm, making Ruolin slightly confused. "We made a high five and agreed. High five agreement. Haha, you little guy is quite interesting. Snapped. The two palms clapped together gently, and the agreement was temporarily effective. Sunur, who was on the side, looked extremely happy after hearing Xian Chen's words. After all, for Xiao Sunur, only by going to Canaan College can she continue her fate with Xian Chen. Instructor Ruolin gently rubbed her smooth forehead with her bare hands, sat on the chair, raised her beautiful eyes, and continued to say to everyone, now that you have passed the primary election, you can all return to Wuyutan City to rest for the time being. Wait a minute, Teacher Ruolin, although I, Xian Chen, am willing to become your student, that will only happen in the future. In the future? Teacher Ruolin frowned slightly. After being silent for a while, she suddenly frowned and said calmly, Xian Chen, what does the future mean? Don't you plan to follow me to Canaan College? You know, it is the dream of many boys and girls to join Canaan Academy. Teacher Ruolin thought that Xian Chen would choose to go back on his words. Faced with such a talented new student, she naturally did not intend to leave him alone. And everyone present looked at Xian Chen dumbfounded. Rob was stunned for a moment, thinking that Xian Chen was about to go back on his word. Just when he was about to snicker, Xiao Yu, who was sitting on the other side, suddenly stood up. Lifting up her long, round, and white legs, she quickly approached Xian Chen, then stretched out her hand to grab Xian Chen's ears, and said angrily, Junior brother, didn't you promise senior sister that you would join the academy? Are you planning to give up? You know if that happens, I will really chase you for 10 streets with a sword. Well. The male students finally saw the grumpy Xiao Yu again, and they were all as scared as chickens. Xiao Sunur, however, was not to be outdone. She also held Xian Chen's arm and said with a look of shame and anger, Brother Xian Chen also promised Sunur. If Brother Xian Chen doesn't go, then Sunur won't go either. Instructor Ruolin frowned. She couldn't believe that two people would choose to give up their qualifications to join Canaan College. Xiao Mei was in a dilemma. It was her dream to join Canaan College. Now seeing that Xian Chen is unwilling to join Canaan College, he is naturally very anxious and blushing. Since Sister Sunur and Xian Chen are not willing to join, then I won't go either. Xiao Mei. Even you. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 103. Chapter 103, Infinitely Ridiculed by Galileo. 181,000. Taking a deep breath, Instructor Ruolin couldn't believe her ears. Her eyebrows were furrowed, and Instructor Ruolin looked at Xian Chen, but she seemed a little disappointed. Feeling the helplessness on Tutor Ruolin's face, Xian Chen had a smile on his face and said softly, I think Tutor Ruolin has a misunderstanding. It's not that I don't want to join Canaan College, but because I still have something important to do, things need to be dealt with. This is my knot. If I can't finish it, I'm afraid my life will be meaningless. There seems to be something in Xian Chen's words. What's going on? Is it like a separation between life and death? Let me guess, is there someone important that I need to meet? Those gossiping female students began to become suspicious, but Xian Chen ignored those people's teasing. He continued to look at Tutor Ruolin, whose expression changed slightly, and continued, if Tutor Ruolin wants to know, you can go to Xiao's house and explain it in detail. If Tutor Ruolin feels it is okay, Xian Chen, will definitely go there in person in the future. Although everyone was confused after hearing these words, Teacher Ruolin seemed to suddenly realize it. He raised his finger, gently pushed Suankin's forehead, and said softly, you little guy is really interesting. One mouthful and one day at a time. Since you want me to go to Xiao's house so much, then I'll just go there. Teacher Ruolin's voice floated here, and all the students were extremely excited. After all, it takes a lot of foundation for a family to have such a highly talented person. As everyone walked out of the tent, the onlookers looked extremely excited. Teacher Ruolin Senior K came over first and looked at Tutor Ruolin with eyes full of affection. Teacher Ruolin's gentle face looked back at the other party and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work. Let's go to the Xiao family today. As for the army, you can arrange to join the Xiao family." "Yes," Teacher Ruolin Senior K replied with a respectful look, and with a wave of his hand, the soldiers surrounding the large circle began to gather in order. Not long after, a large number of soldiers headed towards the residence of the Xiao family. Xiao Buobu and others who had been waiting at the door all looked excited. "I didn't expect Chen'er to actually do it," Xiao Butong's excited voice made all the elders extremely excited. Jialiabai said with a smile on his face, "Congratulations to Brother Buletin, now that we have Mr. Xian Chen, the Xiao family will soon become the largest family in the Jiaji Empire." If it were someone who didn't know Xian Chen's cultivation level, they would definitely think that Jialbi was boasting in the sea. However, those who knew clearly had a look of fear on their faces. After all, for all of them, if Xian Chen is really a strong man with the strength to fight an emperor, then within the Jiajia Empire, the Xiao family will definitely have the power to become the first-class large-scale force in the Jiajia Empire. When Instructor Ruolin and others were gradually approaching, Suankin's eyes had already noticed Xiao Butong. Xiao Butong silently returned a look, then suddenly stepped forward to block the way. Noting these imposing middle-aged old men, Instructor Ruolin and others were very vigilant. Senior K also drew out his sword, protected everyone behind him, and said warily to Xiao Buobu and others, "Who are you? Don't you know our rules? Hey! There's a misunderstanding. We are all members of the Xiao family." Galabai said hurriedly. Senior K looked at Tutor Ruolin suspiciously. Tutor Ruolin nodded slightly before he got out of the way. The first person supported by those old men was naturally Suankin's cheap dad, Xiao Butong. Xiao Butong had a solemn look on his face at this moment. After seeing Ruolin, he hurriedly bowed his hands and said, "I guess this girl is the instructor in charge of Wuyutan City at Canaan College, right?" "I wonder who you are," Teacher Ruolin asked thoughtfully. Xiao Butong looked at Xian Chen and said proudly, "My name is Xiao Butong, and he is my son." "Is he your son?" Instructor Ruolin looked at Xian Chen in surprise, as if she couldn't believe that an old man with only the talent to reach the level of a great fighting master could actually have a son with such a transcendent talent. "I didn't expect Xian Chen's father to be a great fighting master. Why is his father so old? Is he the legendary old man who has a son? Wow, you have a bad mind, but I like it so much." Xiao Butong looked a little embarrassed, so he asked Xian Chen softly, "I wonder how Chen'er has arranged it." "Haha, don't worry, father, Tutor Ruolin and the others have decided to stay at Xiao's house temporarily. Quick, quick, go back and let the servants clean the other courtyard. Please take a rest." Xiao Butong made arrangements immediately, and the elders went home one after another and began to make arrangements. With the visit of Canaan College, it is naturally a very special event for the entire Wuyutan city. But Rob followed silently behind with a dead look on his face the whole time. At this moment, suddenly, a pale young man approached with a lewd expression. "Eh? Are you the Rob who tested Xian Chen?" And then his face was completely disfigured when the crystal collapsed. The person who came was tall, handsome, and naturally it was Galio, the son of Galabai. Rob was furious when he heard what the other party said. But when he saw the other party's almost bloodless expression, he stepped back in shock. Galio was naturally very good at teasing people, so he deliberately approached the opponent and said with a vulgar expression, "Haha, to be honest, I looked down on that kid at first, but ever since I was scared by that kid, I have become completely convinced." "Got him. Have you been beaten by him too? Rob looked at the young man with a bit of laughter and tears. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Galileo suspiciously and continued, do you have a problem with me? If there is no big problem, I hope you leave now. Otherwise, although I am afraid of him, it does not mean that I will afraid of you. Haha, of course I know that you are not afraid of me, but that doesn't mean that I must be afraid of you. I forgot to tell you that our Gialli family has agreed to affiliate with the Xiao family, so now we can be said to be half of the Xiao family. If you take action against me, I believe that with Suankin's character, you will definitely look good. You actually threatened me. What on earth do you want to do? Rob looked at the other party very warily. Ever since he learned about Xian Chen's strength, Rob had begun to look very wary. Now that he encountered such a strange Galileo, he naturally had to be very defensive. He. It's nothing, I just wanted to come over and mock you. Aren't you a genius? Seeing Galileo's extremely sarcastic expression, Rob was so angry that he was shaking all over. But when he noticed that Xian Chen, who was supposed to leave, actually stopped in front of him and stared at him silently, he looked at Galileo with a look of unwillingness and said, you're cruel. Galileo, what are you doing? Do you find it interesting that these guys who think they are geniuses have very unwilling expressions when they are severely defeated? The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 104. Chapter 104, Dissatisfaction from Yafei. 191,000. Rob was so angry that he trembled all over after hearing Galileo's words. But Xian Chen is right in front of him. If he dares to take action rashly, then he is absolutely confident that Xian Chen will definitely take action against him here. Haha, Galileo, what you said is not unreasonable, but don't forget, he is also a student of Canaan Academy. And don't forget that all the Canaan students are guests of my Xiao family. If you are mocking us like this, aren't you saying that our Xiao family has done nothing? Well. Facing Suankin's unwarranted inquiry, Galileo was extremely embarrassed. Although what Xian Chen said was not unreasonable, what made Galileo think so self-righteous was that he ignored how insignificant his family was in front of the huge Canaan students. I'm sorry, sir. Galileo apologized with regret. For him, Xian Chen is no longer someone he can bully casually. When Xian Chen saw the other party politely admitting his mistake, he said seriously, your father is going to receive these distinguished guests today, so you should go too. Yes, young master. Galileo trembled before hurriedly rushing towards the Xiao family who had already walked away. Rob was left standing on the spot with a pale face. After swallowing a mouthful of spit, he looked straight at Xian Chen, fearing that Xian Chen would be unhappy and rush to him and give him a hard punch. Rob retreated slightly, but Xian Chen smiled. The strange smile made Rob feel scared in his bones. Don't worry, I, Xian Chen, am not an unreasonable person. Now you have also suffered the price, so don't worry, I will not attack you again. Xian Chen's understatement made the worried Luo Buletin unable to believe it. He looked at Xian Chen with extremely doubtful eyes, and couldn't believe that Xian Chen actually planned to let him go like this. Yes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tried to teach you a lesson like I did before. Rob apologized in shame, but Xian Chen raised the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand and put it on the other person's shoulder and said calmly, don't get me wrong. Although I don't intend to teach you a lesson, it doesn't mean that no one will teach you a lesson. Since your Canaan college is now a guest of my Xiao family, then naturally I, Xian Chen, will not continue to be in trouble. Xian Chen left such a complete sentence, but it made Rob froze on the spot. A gust of cold wind blew by. Luo Buletin gradually came back to his senses, but when he looked at the place where Xian Chen disappeared, there was no trace of Xian Chen anywhere. Rob wiped the cold sweat from his forehead in shame. The stimulation from the sweat made the small wounds on his face sting extremely. Inside the middle auction. In a nice room, Yafei was sitting elegantly on a chair. The right foot is placed on the left leg, and a seductive white section is exposed under the long chong sam. After listening to what Xian Chen said, a hint of surprise appeared on Yafei's charming cheeks. Looking at Xian Chen with a calm face, Yafei stood up, walked quickly to Xian Chen, frowned and said, "You said you want to leave? Are you going to see Nalan Yan Ran? Isn't it good to stay in Wuyutan City? Don't forget, I'm still waiting for you to take me back to the family to propose marriage." Yafei's beautiful eyes seemed to be trembling. "Yafei, I still say the same thing. I promised Nalan Yan Ran this matter. Now the time has come. If I don't go, then I will have broken my promise in Nalan Yan Ran's heart." Xian Chen replied softly, but it made Yafei's face instantly look ugly. Under Suankin's confused gaze, he saw Yafei suddenly leaning down. Sitting gently on Suankin's lap, holding Suankin's neck with both hands, he complained like a resentful woman, "What about me? In your heart, I, Yafei, am not as good as an underdeveloped girl." Xian Chen stretched out his arms to hug the other party's waist, but ignored the other party's complaints. Instead, he turned to a magic weapon placed on the table and said softly to Yafei, "This is a treasure called the purple gold bell. If you are in danger, you only need to ring it, and then it can explode with a powerful force comparable to damage like a fighting saint." Purple golden bell. Haha, Xian Chen, although you are different, the fighting saint is such a terrifying existence. Let's not talk about whether this magic weapon can really cause damage comparable to the fighting saint as you said. Based on the countless treasures my concubine has acquired over the years, it is just a relatively good and exquisite decoration. Yafei mocked coldly. Xian Chen was not angry, but stopped and put the purple gold bell on her hand. After Yafei put the purple bell on her wrist, an indescribable feeling of warmth seemed to flow into her whole body. Under the influence of this purple golden bell, Yafei's already charming cheeks turned slightly crimson. As if she was satisfied, Yafei looked at Xian Chen and said shyly, "This magic weapon of yours is really interesting. Haha, treasures match beauty. After all, I don't want you to meet a new man during the days I'm gone." Tisk tisk. Yafei complained as if she was dissatisfied. Xian Chen then hugged the other party's waist and collapsed towards the bed. Just as Yafei turned her head shyly, suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Dong dong dong. Who are you, interrupting at this time?" Yafei complained slightly dissatisfiedly. Xian Chen patted her gently, and then walked to the door. After opening the door and seeing Lao Gu Ni with a cheerful face, he asked doubtfully, "Is there something wrong with Mr. Gu Ni?" "If nothing is wrong, I am," Xian Chen said and was about to close the door, but Gu Ni hurriedly held him back with his hand. Gu Ni, who looked anxious, hurriedly moved towards Xian Chen's predecessor. This sudden move frightened Xian Chen. "Mister, isn't it a long-term solution? Gu Ni, when will it be your turn to say such things? Don't forget it. Now that I, Yafei, have become the focus of the family's training, I advise you not to act too hastily on some matters." Yafei's angry words made Gu Ni look embarrassed. Xian Chen looked at Yafei, who was depressed on the bed, dumbfounded. Naturally, it was clear that this was because Gu Ni had disturbed her good deeds, and that's why she was like this. Ahem. After Gu Ni was embarrassed, he thought for a moment and then continued to say to Xian Chen, "Now that the Xiao family has changed hands, I just don't know what Mr. Suankin's next plan is. If young Master Xian Chen is willing to join the royal family of the Jiaji Empire, I believe that with young Master Suankin's ability, he will definitely gain a very good status and power." Royal power? Xian Chen looked at Gu Ni and couldn't believe that this old fox actually wanted to join the royal family of the Jiaji Empire. Although that is the most direct way to make the Xiao family shine. But if that's the case, it's not what Xian Chen wants the most. Haha, Thank you Mr. Gu Ni for the reminder, Xian Chen will remember it. After Xian Chen finished speaking, he suddenly closed the door under Gu Ni's eyes, which still wanted to speak. Hey, you, I haven't finished speaking yet, Gu Ni said angrily. As soon as he took a step, he was hit hard on the nose by the closed door. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 105. Chapter 105, The Bad Old Man is So Bad. 201,000. That bad old man, since you left Wuyutan City, you immediately reported your deeds to the family. If I hadn't insisted not to go back, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to see me anymore. Yafei said quietly, and Xian Chen realized it at this moment. No wonder Yafei had such a big opinion on Gu Ni. It turned out that there were differences between the two in this regard. But Canaan College has to stay at Xiao's house tonight after all. Therefore, Xian Chen had to hurry up and rush towards the Xiao family. After returning to Xiao's house, seeing many soldiers standing at the door, Xian Chen regained his composure and walked towards the mansion. Seeing Xian Chen's arrival, these soldiers all looked puzzled. But no one dared to step forward to stop him. Walking into the Xiao family compound, I saw the students from Canaan College forming a group and having fun. Just as he was about to leave, he was suddenly stopped by a voice. Xian Chen, where did you just come back from? Do you know how much our you wanted to chase you after seeing you leave Shui? I said with a joking look on her face. But it made Xiao Yu, who was standing aside, lower his head shyly. However, just when Xiao Yu looked up, she saw Xian Chen leaving as if nothing happened. This guy. Xiao Yu secretly complained while looking at Xian Chen's back. But she didn't want to be hugged tightly by Shui Ni's jade hands. With a smile on her face, Snowy blinked her big beautiful eyes and said jokingly, Tisk, tisk, I'm afraid my Yuer will be angry. If Xian Chen knew that Yuer had many suitors in the academy, I'm afraid he would be so angry that he vomited blood, right? I hope. Xiao Yu's disappointed voice made Shui Ni slightly stunned. Looking at Xiao Suner and Xiao Mei in the hall, she, who was supposed to be in a good mood, was also speechless. Walking into the hall, Xian Chen's appearance immediately attracted a large number of eyes. Teacher Ruolin looked at Xian Chen with a smile, then she said softly to Xian Chen, if you don't follow us back home, where will you be? Haha, Teacher Ruolin is overthinking it. I just went outside for a walk besides, am I back now? Xian Chen replied with a smile on his face, then silently walked back to the seat and sat down. Seeing that everyone was present, Xiao Butong frowned slightly, then turned to Tutor Ruolin and asked with a smile, Teacher Ruolin can receive so many talented students this time, so she must be in a good mood, right? What did Elder Xiao say? The Doqi continent is so vast, and it was fate to meet him. I just don't know why the head of the Xiao family didn't come out. Is it because I, Ruolin, don't have enough status, or maybe Patriarch Xiao also looks down on Canaan College? Teacher Ruolin's explosive words made everyone present tense up. After all, only those involved know best about Xiao Zhan's whereabouts. Xiao Butong chuckled lightly, then picked up the tea and took a sip before continuing to talk to Tutor Ruolin. The Patriarch went out to travel, so he never returned. But this matter is the most important matter to my Xiao family. Now that Teacher Ruolin has acquired so many talented students, why don't you show some respect and let me select a few suitable juniors from the Xiao family to go to Canaan College together? Instructor Ruolin's eyelashes trembled slightly, she lowered her head and said nothing, obviously she understood the meaning of Xiao Buobu's words. After pondering for a moment, Instructor Ruolin frowned at Xiao Butong and said softly, I wonder if Elder Xiao has suitable personnel? If there are suitable personnel, as long as they can meet the admission standards of Canaan College, it will be fine. Down. Ahem. Xiao Butong looked embarrassed. He originally thought that Xian Chen had exposed his cultivation level in front of tutor Ruolin. Therefore, the other party will come to Xiao's house willingly. However, now that I heard what the other party meant, it was obviously just to find a temporary place to stay. This feeling of shooting oneself in the foot really made Xiao Butong choke. Xian Chen noticed that Xiao Butong was a bit stuck, so he suddenly stood up and walked quickly to Instructor Ruolin. Under the direct gaze of Teacher Ruolin with a puzzled look, Xian Chen then said to Teacher Ruolin very gently, "To be honest, Teacher Ruolin, I invite you to come to Xiao Mansion this time. The first is to show my friendship as a landlord, and the second is to hope that Master Ruolin will accept more Xiao family disciples." If Xiao Buobu's words made Instructor Ruolin feel a little disgusted, then Suankan's words had to be seriously considered by Instructor Ruolin. You know, for young people like Xian Chen who support super talents, for mentors like them, nature is a delicious existence. If she can get into B level, she will be able to get a pretty good fee. If she can get into A level, she will not only have a very considerable income, but also get a mentor reward from Canaan College. Haha, don't tell me that these disciples you are interested in do not have outstanding performance. In that case, it is not impossible to join Canaan Academy. Each disciple only needs to pay 100,000 gold coins to join with confidence. 100,000 gold coins. All the elders were shocked. Although the Xiao family is trying to annex almost ordinary families in Wutan City. But for a disciple to have 100,000 gold coins, it is really embarrassing for them. For a family, 100,000 gold coins may not be a difficult thing. But if every student needs to be given 10 gold coins, they have to seriously consider this. Although they have funds to provide it, it is obviously not a solution to this kind of large-scale consumption. However, just when Teacher Ruolin thought that her words would scare off those people, she thought about it. But unexpectedly, boxes of wooden boxes suddenly came into view. Looking at these golden elixirs filled with gold coins, the eyes of the male students of Canaan College were all shining brightly. This time Xian Chen took out 5 boxes of gold coins, obviously intending to use the gold coins to attract 5 more. Looking at the wealthy Xian Chen, Xiao Buobutong was also surprised as never before. Although he is Xian Chen's cheap father, he has no idea that his son is so rich. When the elders saw Xian Chen raising his hand for 500,000 gold coins, they were instantly frightened and began to become suspicious. Jiao Libi rolled his eyes, now that Xian Chen had taken out 5 treasure boxes each containing 100,000 gold coins. But it also indirectly proves that Xiao Butong and Xian Chen are most likely the masters of the Xiao family. For people like them, 500,000 gold coins is neither too much nor too little. But it is enough to prove that Canaan College is not as money-loving as imagined. Instructor Ruolin covered her mouth and looked at so many gold coins. Instructor Ruolin covered her mouth and looked at so many gold coins. Instructor Ruolin looked at Xian Chen with a dumbfounded look, and said meaningfully, "Xian Chen, although I don't know where you got your rights, you can actually get the support of so many people, but since you can really come up with so many gold coins, then I, Ruolin, will naturally keep my word. Call." After hearing Ruolin's words, the tense state of those elders was finally relieved. After all, for them, as long as people from Canaan College are willing to accept these gold coins, how many descendants of the Xiao family will be sent to them depends on how many gold coins they can continue to pay. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 106. Chapter 106, Showdown, I am the Do Huang. 211,000. Teacher Ruolin blinked her eyes with a curious look on her face, but Xian Chen was slightly startled. Feeling the temptation of this mature beauty, Xian Chen looked at Xiao Suner, who was sitting on the chair with a resentful look on her face, and then coughed lightly in embarrassment. After smiling, he asked Xiao Butong, "I wonder if father has made arrangements for the dinner." "Don't worry, Chen, my father has already arranged these little things. Since you still have some spare time, how about Chen accompany tutor Ruolin to enjoy the scenery in Wuyutan City?" Xiao Butong's words made everyone feel surprised. After all, considering Ruolin's status as tutor, it would be an unwise choice to invite her rashly. However, what was unexpected was that, with her beautiful face raised, Instructor Ruolin smiled jokingly at Xian Chen. "Xian Chen has so many beauties, isn't he afraid of being affected by being alone with me?" "Ahem," Teacher Ruolin said something serious. "It's not as complicated as you think." Xian Chen blushed and stretched out his hand to signal the other party to follow him out. Teacher Ruolin hesitated for a moment before choosing to stand up and, accompanied by Xian Chen, walked towards the door of the hall. Senior K, who was responsible for protecting the Canaan College team, immediately stood up, but was hurriedly stopped by Xiao Butong. "It's best not to disturb this general. After all, I believe that Teacher Ruolin must have a keen eye for recognizing people. Besides, considering the reputation of Canaan College, even if we have evil intentions, we would never dare to do so." Xiao Butong took the initiative to show weakness, which made the arrogant Senior K immediately feel proud. He gave Xiao Butong a hard look, and then continued to sit down with a livid face. Xiao Butong turned to signal to Jia Libi, who was not far away. Jia Libi quickly stood up from his chair and said respectfully to Senior K, "I'm sorry, but you and Teacher Na Ruolin are really good looking. I believe it, judging from your charm. It won't take long for Teacher Ruolin to definitely see your sincerity." Huh. Senior K didn't expect that the other party would say such words. The male students of Canaan College who were sitting not far away were all frightened at this moment. Although they also loved Tutor Ruolin, in the face of the real difference in strength, they could only choose to fall in love secretly. Now being suddenly reminded by Jia Libi, this has shown that even if these guys think about having a crush on Teacher Ruolin, it will only be a dead end. On the streets, with the arrival of Canaan College, the streets that had been quiet for a few days seemed to be suddenly bustling again. There were crowds of people in the streets and alleys, and the sounds of shouting and laughing continued to echo in this small and medium-sized street. Instructor Ruolin was wearing a white short skirt, and the breeze was blowing, but it was suffocating. Some half-grown children looked at the scenery, but they all stared blankly. Instructor Ruolin also seemed to notice the gazes of those experienced people, and was slightly startled. Instructor Ruolin frowned slightly and said softly, "Why do these people's eyes look so disgusting to me?" "Haha, Tutor Ruolin is not only beautiful, but also has a good figure. How have these natives seen a being like you who is comparable to a fairy descending to earth?" Suinkan's voice full of ridicule made Ruolin confused. The instructor's frown gradually relaxed. "Look at Xian Chen's soft eyes." Tutor Ruolin, who was originally angry, suddenly felt her face turn red. After a moment of silence, she said awkwardly, "You little guy doesn't learn well either, your mouth is like honey. But now that I've gone shopping, can you tell me why you want to leave for a while?" Instructor Ruolin opened her eyes curiously. Like a child waiting for candy, waiting for a surprise. Today's Xian Chen is no longer the stupid young man who first came to Dochi continent. Knowing that his strength could determine everything, he suddenly grabbed Instructor Ruolin's left hand. Before Teacher Ruolin could react and subconsciously wanted to break away, Xian Chen suddenly pulled her into an empty alley. Wall bang. Xian Chen supported the wall with one hand. This sudden move made Instructor Ruolin's already blushing face become even redder. Although she is the tutor of Canaan College, in terms of age, she is only a few years older than Xian Chen. Facing this sudden situation, Teacher Ruolin blinked her long eyelashes and said timidly, "Xian Chen, although you are my student, but if you continue this behavior, then Teacher Ruolin will have to treat you take action. Wow. However, just as Tutor Ruolin finished speaking, a pair of wings as black as ink suddenly unfolded from behind Xian Chen. Seeing these tangible wings, Teacher Ruolin covered her rosy mouth in surprise. She opened her eyes wide, as if she couldn't believe that the young man in front of her was so powerful. You are the Do Wang. No. I am a fighting emperor. This understatement stood out from Suankin's lips. Before Teacher Ruolin could react, she saw a boy who was several years younger than herself suddenly retracting his wings. Do Huang, Instructor Ruolin was still surprised. She was completely confused and hadn't figured out how to ask, but at this moment, she felt her whole body tremble like an electric shock. The arms from Xian Chen surrounded her, and immediately after, Teacher Ruolin, with a confused look on her face, was suddenly picked up by Xian Chen and headed towards the clouds in the sky. Due to the speed, even the pedestrians on the street were nothing more than an illusion to them. The few female students of Canaan Academy who were hiding in the dark were all shocked on the outside and tender on the inside. Xue and I looked at Xiao Yu, who was in silence, with a shocked face, and then held Xiao Yu's hand tightly as if she suddenly came to her senses. What's going on, Yu? Didn't he say that he was just a fighting master? But looking at it now, how come this looks like a strong man with the strength of a fighting emperor? Xue and I's doubts seemed to be those of those people. I have a general question. They all looked at Xiao Yu with blank faces, waiting for her answer. But looking at it now, this looks like a strong man with the strength of a fighting emperor? Xue and I's doubts seemed to be what those people wanted to ask. They all looked at Xiao Yu with blank expressions, waiting for her answer. Xiao Yu shook her head helplessly, and then said softly to these good sisters, "You don't know something, Xian Chen actually has been hiding his strength." This answer seemed like no answer, and the angry female students stepped forward one after another and began to bully Xiao Yu, who was still confused. Above the sky, above the clouds, Instructor Ruolin looked at the ant-like humans below with a surprised look on her face, full of nervousness and fear. However, Xian Chen downplayed it, which made her feel a little confused. Xian Chen pointed at the ant-like humans below and said softly, "Teacher Ruolin, I heard that strong people have choices that can determine the life and death of others, but I won't do that. I believe that with everyone's efforts, Duqi continent will get better and better. Although I don't understand what you mean, it makes me feel powerful." Teacher Ruolin has a pair of beautiful eyes, as beautiful as the crescent moon. Looking at the stunning beauty beside him, Xian Chen remained silent for a long time. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Baixiong. Chapter 107. Chapter 107, Leave Wuyutan City. 221,000. I don't know how long it took, but Teacher Ruolin's delicate body trembled slightly. Xian Chen then took her down through the clouds. After landing, Instructor Ruolin, supported by Xian Chen, rushed towards the Xiao family's residence step by step. The guards who were responsible for guarding noticed that Teacher Ruolin's steps were a little unsteady. They looked puzzled and wanted to ask, but they didn't know how to ask. After settling in with Instructor Ruolin, Xian Chen came to a relatively quiet courtyard. The girl in the courtyard was squatting on the ground making soup. She was so focused that she had no idea that a figure was slowly approaching behind her. Wow! Xian Chen suddenly hugged him from behind, and was so shocked that the feather fan in the little medical fairy's hand fell to the ground in a panic. Just as she was about to scream, she suddenly noticed that it was Xian Chen, and then she said with a resentful look on her face, "You still have the nerve to come to me? I think there are so many beauties in this city that you have almost forgotten me, right?" A smile appeared at the corner of Suankin's lips. He stroked the other person's green hair and said with a smile, "No, I just wanted to come over and tell you that I am leaving Wuyutan City." "Leave Wuyutan City? Aren't you going to take me with you? You know, the reason why I left Qingshan town with you is entirely because you are a reliable person. Now that you want to leave as soon as you disagree, do you really think that my little medical fairy is as easy to deceive as those girls in your clan? The little Dr. Xian Dai frowned slightly, obviously feeling that she had been deceived by Xian Chen. However, Xian Chen didn't say a word. After letting go of the other party's embrace, he added more fuel to the still burning furnace. I will find a way to help you solve the situation inside your body, but you have to promise me that you can't fall in love with any man before I come back. Xian Chen's sudden words shocked the little medical fairy. Although she already knew Xian Chen's true cultivation level, she didn't believe at all that he could solve her physical problem. After all, this calamitous poisonous body is an incurable disease according to the current understanding of the little medical immortal. Haha, if you can really cure my bad luck, then my little medical fairy will definitely agree to your request. But the little medical fairy blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at Xian Chen with a smile on her face. It was obvious that she was planning something in her heart. But what? Xian Chen didn't wait for the little medical fairy to continue speaking, so he took a step forward, suddenly stretched out his arm, and gently hugged her tempting water snake waist. Being embraced by Xian Chen from the front, the little medical fairy smiled and immediately stood there in a daze. When she came back to her senses, the pretty face of the little medical fairy instantly turned red again. You are not serious. The little medical fairy's pretty face turned red, showing her cuteness. Fortunately, the place where the little medical fairy lives is a separate courtyard that Xian Chen deliberately asked Xiao Butong to arrange. Otherwise, it would have been arranged in a courtyard similar to a group living. I'm afraid that today's little medical fairy has already been ashamed enough to find a place to hide. Whether I'm serious or not depends on who I treat, doesn't it? Under this sudden attack, Xian Chen was in pain and hurriedly avoided it. While rubbing his waist, he complained to the little medical fairy, "Why don't you act lightly or harshly, girl? I don't know if it hurts to pull like this. Geez, you are also a Do Huang after all. Why are you afraid of even this little bit of pain?" The little medical fairy's joking voice made Xian Chen pretend to look ferocious. I saw him gearing up and slowly approaching the little medical fairy. Yo, look at what you are capable of. I don't believe you can still eat me in broad daylight." The little medical fairy pursed her rosy lips. Just as she finished speaking, Xian Chen suddenly lowered his head and kissed her affectionately. The little medical fairy opened her beautiful autumn eyes and looked at Xian Chen's closed eyes, feeling her face burning with pain. "Ahem, Chen it's offensive." At this moment, Xiao Butong's voice suddenly sounded. Seeing Xiao Butong's visit, Xian Chen hurriedly let go of the little medical fairy. Their faces turned crimson, obviously they were shocked and embarrassed by Xiao Butong's appearance. But Xiao Butong walked into the courtyard unceremoniously. Looking at the flames that were still burning, Xiao Butong said with a serious face, "Chen are you really planning to leave the Xiao family? You know, if you go to Canaan College, you may have greater opportunities for your future." "Father, don't say it. It's not mandatory to enter Canaan College. What's more, the agreed time has come. I think Yan Ran also misses me very much." Xian Chen said without hesitation, but it made the little medical fairy beside him frown. With an innocent look on her face, she raised her complex face and questioned Xian Chen, "Xian Chen, how can you eat from the bowl and look at the pot? Isn't it enough that you have so many girls?" The little medical fairy was dissatisfied with Suankan's indifference. As the door closed heavily, Xiao Butong came to Xian Chen in embarrassment, put his hand on Xian Chen's shoulder, and said sincerely, "Hey, Chen don't blame me for being a talkative father. Although your cultivation is as high as Do Huang, in the final analysis, you are still just a teenager. You can't stop thinking about the future just because of the present. If you really want to leave Wutan City to fight for a blue sky, why not take advantage of this opportunity to leave a wife for me? Cough cough cough. Xian Chen was so shocked by Xiao Butong's words that he kept coughing. After all, he couldn't believe that the unruly Xiao Bubu would say such disrespectful words. Xiao Butong seemed to realize his mistake. He smiled awkwardly, looked at the closed door, then leaned into Suankan's ear and whispered, "If you think these girls are young, why not go and talk to them? How about we discuss this with Miss Yafei?" Yafei. Xian Chen's face twitched and he immediately pretended to be profound. Standing with his hands behind his back, he looked like a man aiming for 1,000 miles. "Father, right now, I haven't considered staying in the future, but if the time comes, I think, I will consider it. So, I disappoint you." "Well." Xiao Butong let out a long sigh, looked at Xian Chen's arrogant back, and then continued, "If that's the case, then it's not easy for a father to force others into trouble. But as a father, not to mention for an old man who is half dead, staying behind, is really important." When Xiao Butong said these words, he seemed much older. Turning to look at Xiao Butong, who had a vicissitudes of life, Xian Chen looked at him in confusion. After all, the meaning of the other party's words is really puzzling. "Ah, Chen you are now, that's all, there is no point in talking about my father. I just don't know when Chen plans to leave." Xiao Butong shook his head and smiled bitterly, but his bitter expression was like a frozen scene. It remains deeply in Suankan's mind. "I want to leave late at night. Firstly, I don't want you to see me off, and secondly, it's for convenience. After all, for me, traveling at night is obviously much faster than during the day. Now that you have an idea, as a father, I wish you a bright future, but as a father, I still have to remind you, the Dochi continent is so big that you can't imagine, so when you are out and about, if you are tired, come back, in Wuyutan City, and you will have a home in Xianchen. The Strongest Husband of Dopo." Author, Hui Baixiong. Chapter 108. Chapter 108, A Young Man with a Special Status. 231,000. Looking at Xiao Butong's kind expression, Xian Chen was slightly startled. After taking a long breath, he spread his wings behind his back. Under Xiao Butong's hesitant gaze, he immediately rose into the sky. Looking at the feathers scattered on the ground, Xiao Butong squatted on the ground and picked up one without saying a word. But the little medical fairy behind the door watched the whole scene happen. After leaving, Xian Chen did not leave Wuyutan City directly. Instead, he headed to the nearby Warcraft Mountains to look for the Yun Yun left behind. When Xian Chen came to the entrance of the cave before leaving again, he was stunned by what he saw. There were piles of corpses lying around the outside of the cave. Looking at the stinky and highly decomposed corpses of monsters, Xian Chen realized that it seemed that Yun Yun had been gone for a long time. After leaving again, Xian Chen had no intention of concealing his strength. With the waving of his wings, Xian Chen rushed towards a large city in the eastern province of the Gama Empire. Although he has now gained the strength to be able to exert great power on the Jiama Empire, these are not what he wants to possess. Not long after, when he noticed that there were already many transport teams riding on birds, Xian Chen quickly flew towards one of them. This is a young man with a handsome face. He is leaning on the back of the flying rider and drinking. But at this moment, Fiki's eyes seemed to see something extremely terrifying. In this sudden situation, the young man staggered and almost fell off the flying knight's back. He was about to curse, but when he noticed that it was a young man with wings on his back, his mouth opened wide in shock. Looking at Xian Chen, his eyes were full of fear, as if he had encountered something extraordinary. Xian Chen looked at the other party silently, then frowned and said, "I wonder where brother plans to go." I plan to go to Black Rock City." "Is there anything wrong with you?" The young man looked at Xian Chen warily. After all, the sudden appearance of this person really made him feel somewhat suspicious. Xian Chen heard that the other party was coming to Black Rock City, so he lay down behind a large flying knight. Noticing that the young man still had a vigilant look on his face, Xian Chen took out the purse containing 100 gold coins from the ring and threw it into his arms. "This is your support. Remember to call me when you get to Black Rock City. But there is one thing I must remind you. If you feel that I am young and want to do robbing things, I advise you to give up." Xian Chen said calmly, but it made the person holding the wine jar look embarrassed. Looking at Xian Chen lying on Fiki's body, the young man let out a long breath. Fortunately, the person who came had no intention of taking action against him. Otherwise, he might really jump down from the back of this flying horse. Looking at the familiar boy, the young man let out a deep breath. So he sat aside and drank quietly as if nothing had happened. With the drunkenness and the howling of the wind, the young man's mind gradually became trance-like. After pushing Xian Chen, who was taking a rest for a while, the young man came closer to Xian Chen and said with a lewd expression, "Little brother, do you like drinking? You know, I brought this wine from the Tianji mansion." Tianji mansion. Xian Chen was interested in the other party's words, so he stood up and looked at the other party. When he saw the vulgar expression on the other party's face, Xian Chen pushed the other party away with all his strength, and said with a look of disgust, "How much wine have you drunk? You are not afraid of falling off this flying knight?" Xian Chen said meaningfully before looking down. Under the rays of the setting sun, a huge city with a light red luster gradually came into view. Looking at the huge city, which was actually made of many dark rocks, I couldn't help but feel a little confused. The young man seemed to notice the confusion in Xian Chen's eyes, so he pretended to have a sleazy look on his face and said with a smile, "Hey, did you see it? The city made of black rocks ranks among the best among all the large cities in the Jiama Empire. Is this Black Rock City?" Xian Chen looked at the young man pretending to be surprised. When the young man saw Xian Chen's expression, he looked suspicious and said, "I see you have wings on your back, shouldn't you be short-sighted? Could it be that you have learned some flying fighting skills? Haha, I didn't expect you to find out. What? Do you really want to rob me? You know, if you really rob me, I am not afraid of you." Xian Chen smiled disdainfully. Na Cheng thought that the young man looked at Xian Chen with a speechless expression, and then took out a scroll with wings from the ring. "Did you see it? This is the flying fighting skill," the young man said with a proud face. Xian Chen was about to reach out to take it, but the other party suddenly took it back into the ring. "Stop, you and I are not familiar with each other." The young man's eyes became sharp, and he was obviously becoming wary of Xian Chen. Xian Chen rolled his eyes at the other party. After being speechless, not long after, the flying knight finally slowly landed in front of Black Rock City. Because the flying cavalry was so huge, the guards at the door had already rushed over before landing. "This Black Rock City is really big," Xian Chen said with emotion. Although he has been in Doqi continent for a long time, as far as his current knowledge is concerned, it is only in Wuyutan City and Warcraft Mountain. "Haha, you don't know this, right? This Black Rock City once withstood the combined force of two powerful Do Wang warriors. So, even though it's just a city, its defense level is so strong that even Do Wang can't do anything about it." The young man, who was a little dizzy, jumped off the flying horse with a smile after the introduction. "Stop. There are regulations in Black Rock City. No matter who you are not allowed to ride a flying horse in the south of the city." One of the guards looked at the young man with an embarrassed expression, but the young man drunkenly took off a jade pendant with a dragon engraved on it from his waist. The moment the soaring dragon jade pendant appeared, the guards were so frightened that they hurriedly clasped their fists and saluted. "I didn't expect that it was the little heavenly master who came here. I hope that the little heavenly master will forgive me." The guard apologized hurriedly, but the young man who was called the little heavenly master, as if he was sober, made a gesture towards Xian Chen. With his eyes, he walked towards the city. Not long after, under the familiar guidance of the young man, the two checked into an extremely luxurious inn. The young man lying on the bed noticed the suspicion in Xian Chen's eyes, and then explained helplessly, "Oh, don't look at me like that. If you have that jade pendant, believe it or not, those people will do the same, call you little heavenly master." "What do you mean? Are you lying?" Xian Chen said teasingly. The young man then took off his clothes and lay down on the bed without saying a word under Xian Chen's gaze. Seeing that the other party was not interested in him and Xian Chen was not interested in him, he walked to another bed to rest. Fortunately, there was nothing to say all night, and as soon as the first twilight of the morning spread over the earth, Xian Chen and the little heavenly master had already walked to the counter of the inn. The innkeeper in front of the counter had a flattering expression on his face, as if seeing the two of them was like seeing a treasure. "What do you two young masters see?" The innkeeper's flattering look made Xian Chen feel speechless. "Ha ha, shopkeeper, don't be like this. We just want to inquire about the location of the Alchemist Union," the young man said cheerfully. When the innkeeper heard that he was here to inquire about the location of the Alchemist Guild, he was surprised. However, after noticing that the two people in front of him had an extraordinary aura, they quickly and respectfully revealed the location of the Alchemist Guild. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Baixiang. Chapter 109. Chapter 109, Obtain the Alchemist Level Badge. 241,000. After leaving the inn, the young man said to Xian Chen with a disdainful look on his face, "Did you see it?" "Brother, the surprised and flattering look on that innkeeper's face really made me see it. Do you know why? The noble status of an alchemist has been deeply rooted in the hearts of every Doqi continent in the Jiaji Empire and even the entire Doqi continent." Xian Chen ignored the other party's words, and his eyes fell on the neat guards. Although it is early morning, the streets are bustling with activity. The armors worn by these guards collided with each other, and the crisp sounds, like morning bells, continued to echo in the bustling streets. Under the constant complaints from the young man, Xian Chen and him finally saw a majestic building after turning around several rather slender streets. This house has a rather unique shape. The entire appearance roughly looks like a medicine cauldron. When his eyes fell on the sandalwood plaque, 5 simple fonts gradually came into view. "Is this the Alchemist Guild?" Xian Chen looked at the 2 heavily armed men standing at the door, and then he hesitated and prepared to leave. But some pedestrians passing by looked surprised. After all, those who can come to the Alchemist Guild are either rich or noble. "What are you looking at? If you don't have a letter of introduction, you can't go in." One of the burly men stared at them suspiciously. He obviously regarded the 2 of them as young masters from aristocratic families who had nothing to do. The young man smiled disdainfully, so he quickly walked up to the big man and handed the jade pendant that he had shined to him for a look. But the big man grabbed the jade pendant in his hand. Looking at this nice piece of jade pendant, the big man said proudly, "Ha ha, don't even think about bribing me with something like this." "Are you kidding me?" the young man complained angrily and amusedly. Before the big man could continue to speak, he immediately saw a petite figure running towards the side at high speed. As the fragrant wind blew towards his face, Xian Chen frowned slightly and turned around to look. When he saw this woman in purple clothes, he was attracted by her pretty face. Although judging from her appearance, she may be in her early 20s, but judging from her development, it is obviously quite surprising. On top of her plump and mature body, she was wearing a tight-fitting purple alchemist costume. From this, it could be seen that the other party was most likely a staff member of the Alchemists Union. "Teacher, hurry up!" The woman in purple turned to look at the old man who was still coming behind her, and said with a slight complaint. When Xian Chen's eyes fell on the old man walking slowly and lazily, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Did you see the badge on the old man's chest?" The young man rolled his eyes and said cheerfully. Xian Chen did not reply but nodded silently. The young man put his hand on Suankin's shoulder and said seriously, "On his badge, not only is there a simple medicine cauldron embroidered on it, but there are also 4 carefully drawn lines on the surface of the medicine cauldron. Silver ripples. And do you know what these 4 silver ripples represent? They represent his status as a 4th-grade alchemist." The young man looked at the old man with respectful eyes. Xian Chen, on the other hand, rolled his eyes at the other person and had not yet thought about how to reply. The woman standing on the other side frowned slightly and glanced at the two of them helplessly. Then he turned to the big man guarding the door and said coquettishly, "Why are you blocking me? Isn't it fun? Hey, Miss Linfei is here to take the 1st-grade alchemist exam today, right?" one of the big men teased with a wicked smile. The woman in purple, who was called Miss Linfei, smiled and said softly to the teasing man, "Well, with the teacher's advice, I am confident that I will officially become an alchemist today." After saying that she officially became an alchemist, Miss Linfei did not forget to look at Xian Chen and the other two. Although both of them are dressed more luxuriously, they are still very popular in this Black Rock city. Slowly retracting her gaze, Linfei shook her head slightly before continuing to look at the old man. The old man finally arrived and smiled and said, "Linfei, today you have to give me a voice, and you can't embarrass me." Master Otto, seeing the old man, the two big men quickly bowed and saluted respectfully. "Haha, okay," Master Otto replied with a smile and a kind look on him. So with the support of Miss Linfei, he walked towards the interior of the Alchemist Guild. "Teacher, what do you think those 2 guys are doing at the door of the Alchemist?" Miss Linfei asked doubtfully. Her red lips were slightly open, obviously she was interested in one of them. Master Otto was asked about the other party's words. After a slight hesitation, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Those who can come to the Alchemist Guild are either here to ask for medicine or are passing by. You'd better think about whether you can refine a formed pill. Take medicine." "Hey, teacher, isn't it just about refining a formed elixir? Don't worry, your apprentice can definitely refine it." Linfei smiled coquettishly and took Master Otto's arm, smiling coquettishly. Outside the door, Xian Chen and the 2 men's eyes were always on their backs. One of the big men coughed slightly when he saw their yearning eyes, then walked up to them, returned the jade pendant to the young man, and then said with a smile, "Don't look, that old man is a 4th-grade refiner, Master Pharmacist Otto, and the woman beside him is his personal disciple, Miss Linfei. If you are really just passing by, then leave as passers-by, otherwise, we will really drive you away." As soon as he finished speaking, the big man knocked on the sword hanging on his waist. The young man glanced at the other person speechlessly, then turned over his collar, and then the same badge as Master Otto came into view instantly. However, what is drawn on the surface of that simple medicine cauldron is not 4 silver ripples, but 3 copper-colored ripples. Although there were 3 copper-colored ripples, it made the 2 big men look at each other in shock. So under the expressionless gaze of the young man, the 2 guards quickly bent down humbly. Looking at this change, before Xian Chen could react, he was already pulled into the door by the young man under the respectful eyes of the 2 big men. "Enter the Alchemist Guild." An extremely fragrant medicinal fragrance slowly greeted the hall. Looking at the busy staff with their heads down, the young man frowned and then turned to a woman in a light blue dress and spoke softly, "How do you get the alchemist level badge? There is no one to help you." "Well." The staff members raised their heads one after another, their eyes speechless, obviously full of contempt for the young man's recklessness. However, the young man smiled disapprovingly. After a while, the woman in a light blue dress hurriedly stepped out from a backstage. He quickly came to the 2 of them, and when he noticed that there was a badge on the young man's collar, a trace of surprise flashed in his beautiful eyes. But when it fell on Xian Chen, he asked with a smile, "I wonder if this young master wants to apply for the alchemist level badge. You must know that applying for the alchemist level badge is not a casual joke." "Oh? You mean, I, a dignified third-grade alchemist, will find something to do when I have nothing to do?" Although the young man's voice was low, it could be seen that the other party was really angry. But the woman with bright eyes and white teeth showed a timid expression. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Baixiong. Chapter 110. Chapter 110, Please come this way. 251,000. You, please. The woman in green looked shocked. For a person with the status of a third-grade alchemist, she naturally did not dare to laugh too much. He hurriedly retreated to the counter, pointed at a seat made of tiger skin, and then timidly walked back to the work seat. I saw her stretching out her jade hand. After taking out a piece of ancient yellowed parchment from the counter, he calmed down and held the neatly arranged pen tightly in his hand. He raised his head and glanced at the young man, then looked at Xian Chen who was sitting down, then smiled and asked, "Master, please tell me your name, age, and mentor's name, so that Yahan can help you register." Xian Chen was slightly startled. He had never considered registering as an alchemist. Now it's just a matter of following the young man's wishes. I thought it was just a joke played by the young man, but the idea actually required registration. The young man obviously noticed Xian Chen's doubts. Seeing that Xian Chen was silent for a long time, he turned to Yahan with a smile and said cheerfully, "His name is Xian Chen. He is 18 years old. According to the teacher, his name is Qi Tian." Qi Tian? Obviously, he has some impression of the word Kishan in his mind, but he can't remember it at this moment. After a slight silence, Xian Chen's identity information was temporarily registered under the direct gaze of the young man who called himself Qi Tian. "I wonder how many levels of badges you want to apply for." Yahan looked at Xian Chen with a smile on her face, her rosy mouth slightly open, obviously hesitant to speak. Second grade, Xian Chen said to Yahan, but it was Yahan who was smiling at first, and her expression instantly turned to astonishment. And Qi Tian obviously didn't expect that Xian Chen would apply for a second grade badge as soon as he arrived, so he put his hand on Suankin's shoulder and said with a proud face, "Brother, I'm not bragging, this alchemist's grade badge is not just say as much as you want. How about this? I remember that the Alchemist Guild has an agreement specifically to assess the level of alchemist. If you can pass the level assessment, you can successfully receive the level badge. But seeing how smart you are, you might as well just try the assessment for the second grade badge." Although Qi Tian wanted to help Xian Chen, he immediately thought that Xian Chen was a newbie to the Alchemist Guild from the moment he spoke. "That's why I thought about it a little and arranged the assessment for Xian Chen. Do you really plan to take the test for the second grade badge? If that's the case, then please come with Yahan. By the way, if Mr. Xian Chen has not received a professional badge before, he needs to start the assessment as a first-level alchemist. Then, if he is successfully promoted, he can continue to assess the second-level alchemist. After all, I believe that Mr. Qi Tian, as a third-grade alchemist, is absolutely clear about this matter." As soon as Yahan said these words, Qi Tian, who was already a little proud, felt a little embarrassed, but fortunately, this was the headquarters of the Alchemist Guild. Otherwise, with Qi Tian's character, he would really give the other party a lesson. Xian Chen looked sideways at Qi Tian, then smiled at Yahan and said, "Since it is the rule of the Alchemist Guild, let's start from the first time." "Thank you for your understanding, please come here." Yahan was very satisfied with Suankin's answer, so she twisted her slim figure and led the two of them to a stone gate guarded by 4 big men. Xian Chen couldn't help but frown as he looked at the 4 tough men who were all fighting warriors with 9 stars. Watching Yahan walk up to one of the big men and explain the reason, Qi Tian, who was beside him, happily explained, "The Alchemist Guild is special after all, this is just one of the ones I have seen. You know, I saw 4 people guarded by 3-star doshi before." However, Qi Tian's little pride did not attract Qian Chen's attention. "Uncle Taya, has the internal assessment started? I still have one person who needs to be assessed." Yahan handed Suankin's temporary registration document to the big man named Taya. The big man glanced at the registration list, then smiled obscenely at Yahan and said, "Miss Yahan is getting more and more beautiful as she grows. Do you have a chance to go have a drink with me?" "Haha, Uncle Taya was joking, Yahan is busy on weekdays, so I will be willing to accompany you if I have time." Yahan's understatement of rejection made Taya's face change slightly. Looking up at Qian Chen, he was slightly surprised to find that he couldn't see the opponent's strength. However, when his eyes fell on the 3rd grade badge worn by Qi Tian on his collar, his expression changed drastically. He walked quickly to the two of them, and under Qian Chen's confused gaze, he took out a black armband from his arms and then respectfully handed it to Qian Chen. "Haha, this young master is young and energetic. I think he will definitely pass this test. This is your test number. Don't lose it," Taya said familiarly. Qi Tian frowned and said displeasedly to Taya, "Can we go in now?" "Ahem, of course, of course." Facing an existence with a 3rd grade badge, Taya naturally did not dare to provoke him at will. But this gentleman must also know that during this assessment period, except for specific personnel, ordinary people are not allowed to enter casually. As an alchemist, you must be aware of this, right? Taya's words are nothing more than a warning to Qi Sky. How could Qi Tian not hear it? He gave the other party a sharp look before placing the black armband in Qian Chen's hand on Qian Chen's shoulder. "Brother, the assessment is very important, so I won't accompany you in, but you have to be proud. When you pass the assessment, I'll treat you to a drink." "Ha ha ha," Qi Tian said with a carefree expression, and then started to turn back towards the original road. When Yahan saw Qi Tian leaving, and now that the procedures were complete, she smiled lightly at Qian Chen and said, "I wish you success, I wish you success." "Thank you," Qian Chen replied with a smile, and under the gaze of everyone, he stepped into the door where so many people looked up at him. After stepping through the door, those hanging bright lights illuminate the spacious hall as if it were daytime. Seeing that there were already many people participating in the assessment in the hall, Qian Chen found a quieter place to rest for a while under the whispers and laughter. Scanning the hall casually, Qian Chen was slightly surprised when he noticed that most of the people were wearing rank badges. However, when he noticed the old man he met at the door, a smile appeared on his face. Master Otto, who was communicating with the old man next to him, obviously noticed this strange smile. His eyes fell on Qian Chen, and when he saw that the other party had come to take part in the assessment, he immediately walked towards Qian Chen. "You must know that given Master Otto's status in the Alchemist Guild, many people pay attention to his words and deeds." The old man who was communicating with Master Otto saw that Otto was actually walking towards a young man, so he hurriedly took steps and walked in the same direction with interest. Master Otto looked at Qian Chen seriously, and then asked doubtfully, "Young man, where is the young man next to you in front of you?" "Young man? You mean Qi Tian?" Qian Chen answered as if nothing had happened. After all, this was the first time he heard that the young man's name was Qi Tian. However, as soon as he said these words, Master Otto's whole body was shaken.